Presentation will look at two Eastern world religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, that have had an important impact in the East as well as in other parts of the world as they have spread and moved to different regions. India is often termed the Empire of the Spirit because four major world religions found their birthplace in India. And the two we'll talk about are Buddhism and Hinduism, but also Jainism, related closely to Hinduism, and Sikhism, a later kind of fusion between Buddhism and Islam, also found their origins in India. When looking at the world religions by percentage, Hinduism and Buddhism are the third and fourth largest, behind Christianity and Islam. And although there are quite a few lesser Hindus and Buddhists than Muslims and Christians, they still form an important number throughout the world. In fact, it's close to 1 billion Hindus in the world population, but as you can see on this slide, much smaller in the United States. The primary region for Hinduism is India itself and some neighboring countries, as well as some spreading into Southeast Asia. But it is a predominantly India religion. When looking at some aspects of Hinduism, you can see the vibrant colors and vitality and lots of images and beautiful temples and shrines. Gandhi drew a lot of inspiration from the Hindu religion and his thought and philosophy. And of course, it is associated with India, its birthplace, and things such as the bindi, the dot, indicating a married woman, is a cultural part of Hinduism that continues still today. Some, when they refer to Hinduism, don't even like to call it a religion, but more of a culture. Its more technical term is Sanatana Dharma, or the eternal sacred duty, the duty that one has to follow the way of nature, of the Brahman, as we'll discuss a little bit later. In fact, the Indian Supreme Court decided to take up the issue of, well, what defines a Hindu? If it's such a part of the culture, what makes a Hindu? And they came up with several aspects. One, that the person accepts and reveres the Vedas, or ancient scriptures that tell the history of early Hindus. A spirit of tolerance for all living things. Belief in vast cosmic periods of creation and destruction. And by vast, we're meaning millions and millions of years, and kind of the cyclical creation and then destruction. Belief in reincarnation is very strong in Hinduism and Buddhism. And a belief in multiple paths to salvation and truth. There isn't just one way, but there are many things that people can do to achieve salvation. A very strong idea that gods could be represented in many different forms and images. In fact, some say that Hinduism would be the most polytheistic of all the religions. And related to what we said before, a philosophical flexibility, that there isn't just one single dogma that everyone needs to follow. So it can be very difficult for missionaries to teach Hindus because they can be very accepting of what's taught as simply something to add to all their other beliefs, and it's hard for them to believe in just one path, one truth, one true religion or church. Just a brief history. Early on, Aryans, an Indo-European group, moved into India and kind of dominated the Dravidian or local native group around 3000 BC. And this blending of these two different cultures or civilizations created what is kind of the roots to Hinduism. where there's a focus on fertility worship, but also a nature-centered worship with sacrifices and so forth as a part of that. And as we mentioned before, the Vedas are their scriptures, and the Rig Veda is the earliest or the big Veda of this religion. So some refer to Hinduism as the Vedic religion because of their belief in the Vedas. Some common elements is they're very pluralistic, that whatever God you may worship, I answer the prayers. A statement in Bhagavad Gita, one of their books of scripture. They're non-egalitarian, which is sometimes hard for those in the West, meaning they believe that there are different caste levels and status and classes in society, and that not everybody is created equal. And there's an ultimate unity of life, ahimsa, that there should be non-violence to all living things because we are all connected. There's a lot of question of how many gods are in Hinduism. On the one hand, you could say thousands or even millions of gods, and yet on the other, they all kind of represent one God, the Brahman, that goes back to kind of a universal soul or an all-pervading spirit, an absolute. It's hard to define what is Brahman. It's just everything everywhere. Now the Atman is within each living thing, a real or true self. It's a force, and it's seen to be just a part of the Brahman, kind of shared during that person or animal's life, and then given back to the Brahman after. So sometimes they'll refer to three major gods or manifestations of the Brahman Atman, one that creates, one that destroys, and one that preserves. And particularly the one that preserves, the eighth avatar or incarnation, is Krishna. And so that's where you hear sometimes about Hare Krishnas, or people who worship this aspect of Vishnu, this reincarnation. And so there's many stories about Krishna, and even love stories with Radha, and so children will dress up as Krishna and Radha, and plays will be given and so forth to tell their story. Another popular god in Hinduism is Ganesha, represented as this elephant god who brings good fortune to people. So some important beliefs in Hinduism is samsara, or reincarnation, or transmigration. The soul wanders from one aspect to another. Dharma is the belief that you have a certain duty that you must follow. So there's right conduct. And then karma is a work or action that one does that will have an effect later on. So good work brings good results. Bad or evil brings bad or evil. And so we often talk about good or bad karma. But ultimately, the goal of Hinduism is to be liberated from reincarnation, to not keep coming back. And that is what they call moksha, or liberation, and joining up with the Brahman. So they have different ways of manifesting how to achieve this moksha, or salvation. The Bhagavad Gita is one story that talks about this. And basically it says to try to follow one's dharma, to pursue honest prosperity, enjoy the pleasure of this life, in order to achieve the salvation of the soul. And so if we put it in kind of an equation, dharma plus artha plus kama equals moksha. There's many pilgrimages in Hinduism where they go to holy cities and temples and to the rivers, especially the Ganges River. And here are some pictures of pilgrims coming to the river and doing ritual bathing and making libations or offerings to the river. And they see the river as a manifestation of the gods. As mentioned before, they have a caste system with different levels, and so you're born into this, and it's just expected that you will do the dharma of your caste. And many people will have shrines in their homes with images of the various gods. As mentioned before, they will make pilgrimage to these sites. They have very vibrant and beautiful temples. Here's some facades of temples. And, they believe in marriage, that husband and wife should come together. They meditate, and that's similar to how we emphasize pondering scriptures and so forth. And they put a great emphasis on beautiful temples to revere the gods as well as a place of beauty and worship, just as we have beautiful temples.